Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 25 of the Natural Female Muscle Podcast. Today, we are joined by a returning guest. Dr. Zena is back, and she's back after, I think you were on one of the very, very first episodes, maybe episode 3 or 4. So it's awesome to have you back on. And today, we are going to have a little bit of a catch up, but this episode is going to be touching upon expectations of returning to stage as an athlete, because I think that we've maybe touched upon it in a few episodes, but for most of the episodes and a lot of the things we talk about, and even on social media, you see a lot of posts about, managing expectations as a first timer and, how to deal with the show day and the prep as a whole. But not many people really talk about like expectations through off season, through prep, when you're actually going back to stage. Whether you've had a good season, a bad season, whatever it may be, it's very different. And I think that sometimes that can actually be harder than the first time experience, when you literally have a completely clean slate. And so I think it's going to be good to chat about that today. And of course, amazing to have Zena on, because Zena has had her return to stage this year, because when we last spoke, you were just like in the midpoint of your prep, I think. So it's really awesome to have Zena on and to hear her experience with this and how that's been. So Zena, thank you for coming on again today.
Thanks for having me back.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's been obviously lovely to see you at your shows this year and to be there and to support you. And do you want to kind of just start by giving everyone a little bit of an update in terms of what shows you've done, how those shows went, and what the rundown with that was?
Yeah, of course. So finally returned to stage after 3 years of off season, which when we spoke about it was like 1,000 days or something, even more than that, which is actually crazy. So yeah, started off with a UKDFBA qualifier. So I did the UKDFBA Northern, which I managed to get first. And that was a really special show for me because the UKDFBA was kind of the one that I was aiming at, and it was obviously the first show back, and it made kind of better by like having all my friends around me as well. So that one was really special. And then the next weekend I did the BMBF Northern Qualifier and PCA Wales, which I also managed to win. And BMBF was a new federation for me, so really, really enjoyed that. And I also kind of tried out some new categories as well, which again just had so much fun. So a really nice start to the season, and just prepping for finals now. So yeah, it feels weird saying that now, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know it is. It is weird, like especially when it's been so long as well, because you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I've actually done those shows now, and now I'm going for finals.
yeah.
But yeah, it's been amazing to see you obviously have that like very deserved success over those first few shows that you've had this year. But how have you felt like emotionally going into those shows? I know we spoke quite a bit on the last episode just about you kind of coming to like peace a little bit more with like your expectations for the prep, but it can change when you get closer, especially like the day before the show, the day of the show, when you're on stage. Like, did you find that your emotions changed at all throughout that, and like especially in between shows as well?
Yeah, honestly, like for my whole prep, pretty much, like I never really, I just kind of, ticked my boxes, did what I needed to do. But peak week for me is always the hardest week, I think, because I think all of the work is pretty much done. And like you can't really change much in peak week if you're ready. And it's kind of like everything was done, everything else was kind of out of my control. And you do start thinking like, will I look better? What am I going to look like? What's the day going to look like? And for me, like, I know peak week we should be relaxing, but my mind just goes into overdrive. And it's just one of those things that happens with me. So yeah, peak week I was definitely kind of like more nervous than anything, and especially before the first one, because it's like you just don't know what you're going to look like till you get up there. And that would have been like the first time I've seen my physique since I stepped off stage, but also other people have seen my physique as well. So it is kind of like you do wonder, and I've done quite a good job this prep of kind of not thinking about other people, but you always do wonder like,
Yeah.
will people think that I've improved or whatever. So yeah, it was kind of like there's a lot of mind games on peak week for sure. And then because they were back to back peak weeks, I think anyone that's experienced back to back peak weeks, to be honest, you don't really think about much in the middle. After the first weekend, by the time you kind of come back down to like planet Earth, you're already like 2 days out again. So in between those two shows, like that was just a blur, and I honestly don't even remember what happened that week. Like no idea. So yeah, definitely kind of just more like nervous than anything, I think.
Yeah. How did you feel though after that first win that you got at the Northern? Did that solidify a little bit more confidence in you? Especially, I know you said you kind of don't have much time to actually come down to earth between those shows because it's
Yeah,
go, go, go. But did it give
yeah,
you a bit more confidence as you went into the BNBF the weekend after as well? And just with the season as a whole, to be honest.
yeah. Um, I think if you know me personally, like I'm not that confident anyway. So I don't think it gave me more confidence, but it did just kind of like, it just made me like proud of myself, which is all I really wanted. Like seeing the stage photos that people had taken on their phone and things, I was like, okay, like I am actually proud of that. And that's all I could have asked of myself. And I think like coming off that day, like I just felt so like wholesome. Like I was just genuinely just so happy with kind of that I was back on stage. Like just the day as a whole was amazing. Like I just couldn't have asked for any more. And just even for me, like the support of everyone on that day, like I honestly I just felt so like almost just like loved by everyone, like my closest friends, which was just so special for me. Like I saw you most of the day, and it was just yeah, for me that was just kind of the most special part, I think. And then going into BMBF, obviously I was doing a slightly different category. So I did the bodybuilding in BMBF instead of
Yeah.
physique. So um I wouldn't say I was any more confident. If anything, I think I was more nervous going into the second peak week. I knew it was going to be kind of a big show, and yeah, I don't know. I was more nervous. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, well, you were stressing about doing
I
body.
know.
Honestly, the amount of messages you were like, Loz, I don't think I can do it. I was like, do it. And then what
I
happened?
was,
Uh, yeah.
I don't even know what I texted you. Was it the day before and the morning of? I was
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to do it. I was like, I'm going to back out. I was like, I can't do it. And then you were just like, Zena, just do it. And I was like, okay. So yeah, I'm really glad I did it because I'm honestly I loved that so much. Like for me, I think people would have heard me talk about it before, but like heels are so unnatural, but I do love the figure category. But being able to take them off and just like genuinely just like tense everything and just enjoy, I think you could probably see it on my face. Like I just had so much fun. So yeah, thank you for pushing me to do that.
I think it's almost nice as well because I know you'd already been on for figure before you've been on for bodybuilding, but it's like
Yeah.
you get to then go back on and really just like do something where genuinely there isn't any
Yeah,
expectation at all, and you do
definitely.
just enjoy yourself. And do you kind of feel like actually having that opportunity? And I suppose some people can like view this whether it be a different category or a different federation or whatever it is,
Mhm.
you give yourself that opportunity to just like enjoy that moment on stage, enjoy the work
Yeah.
that you put in, enjoy being there, and feel like more content with just like bodybuilding and doing the work rather than worrying about a result at all. Like there's no thought about a result at any point in your mind.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is for both UKDFBA, which I did physique, and the BMBF, which obviously I did bodybuilding, in both of those shows, like I will honestly say I enjoyed physique and bodybuilding a lot more than figure
Yeah.
for that reason. I think for figure, because that's the category I've done before, it's the category that I put pressure on myself to be kind of like good at, and it's a category where almost I put these expectations on myself. So before figure, I'm always really nervous. Like I'm genuinely just like scared to go on, and like I overthink it, and I self-doubt so much. But then for physique and bodybuilding, because I've just pushed myself to do something different, I have no expectations. I just want to go and have fun. I think you could see that on stage. Like I genuinely on both of those categories just had like the best time. And I think it is the kind of like it makes me realize that I need almost to just relax for figure even. And I think doing different federations and doing kind of different categories, if you can in a show, it just lets you love the sport, like you said, so much more, and just appreciate what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, like, a placing really doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. So just having that moment to enjoy, I think, is so special, and I'm so glad I did them.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely the benefit of just like doing more, because I think even if you're like retaining a title or you're going to the same show, some people can just go, okay, I'm just doing that exact same one. It's like if you were only
Yeah.
to KDFBA this year, that pressure would probably be
Mhm.
even higher. And it's why like
Yeah.
I kind of want to almost do like what you've done, where I do a few different,
Yeah.
get the opportunity to like do bodybuilding and BMBF, so that I can think more about like getting on stage, like having stage time and enjoying that, rather than just
Yeah.
all this pressure on one category, one show, worrying about this. Like, even if you don't get like a specific placing, like obviously
Yeah.
you're bodybuilding, but they put you in the top 3 in physique because they were like, nah, you'll figure anyway, but you still get that experience. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a really nice thing for you to be able to like take away from your season. So it doesn't all just think, oh, I've got this figure goal and I have to do this and I have to do that. And
Yeah.
probably teaches you a lot about, like you said, those backstage moments, which I'm sure you're maybe thinking of like carrying over a little bit more into the finals, because I know that pretty much like all of your backstage moments for like figure have been a bit stressful this year.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I just get so nervous and like so worried about what could happen that I almost just kind of forget like I'm actually doing this right now. And then before I know it, I'm off the stage and I've done it. And I don't think I really kind of appreciate what I was doing. So yeah, I'm definitely glad that those other categories kind of taught me that, just go and you've done the work and just go and genuinely enjoy it. Um, so yeah, I definitely want to carry that over into finals and just be kind of just happy with just everything, rather than trying to, be stressed or whatever. Because at the end of the day, kind of how you feel in yourself and your confidence, it really does show on stage. And all of my favorite stage photos so far are from the bodybuilding and physique. And that's not just because of the category, it's because I genuinely look happier. So it's one of those where like I'm not under like any illusion that my physique is like in suits bodybuilding completely right now, but even just being able to go there and see kind of where I stand in that category for like long term, like
Yeah.
thinking about that, I think that's another reason why it's
Mhm.
just good, I think, just to do it if you're up for it, definitely.
Yeah. I know this is kind of like a bit of a side tangent, but have you thought about that since you obviously did that at the MBF, in terms of like long-term potential goals as well?
Yes. So much. So, if you asked me this question a year ago, I think you probably did ask me, and I said to you, my heart is figure, I will always be figure. I would never ever do another category. But after coming off that bodybuilding stage, like, oh, I don't know. I think long term that may be where I end up.
Yeah.
Speaking to the judges as well afterwards, like they even said that my physique just looks like so much more alive when I don't have my heels on, and I'm so much happier without my heels. But like we both know, we're very young athletes in this sport, and it will take me a long time to be competitive in women's bodybuilding. So it's not something that I would kind of just transition into and never do figure again, because I do think I've still got a lot of kind of potential as figure. But I think if I do continue this sport, in the next kind of 10, 15 years, then I definitely will do bodybuilding again. But I think that's the beauty of BMBF, especially, is being able to do both, and just being able to show two different types of physique, which is really nice. And yeah, I made the just kind of point of changing my bikini in those shows as well, just so I could actually look different. And it's kind of crazy that you can look different in two different categories. So yeah, long term, I don't know. I think once I'm out of prep and I've digested this season, I'll make a plan. But it's
You'll know when
hard,
you
isn't
get
it?
back to growing again as well. But no, that's
Yeah.
I would, I mean, I'd love to see that, but that's something that I really want to see over like the next, like I think 5 to 10 years. You'll see a lot of the girls that like we know and we see on stage now hopefully
Yeah.
transitioning into that direction as we just continue to, grow and get older, because I'd love to see that. Like, can you imagine like 5, 10 years,
All of us
all
together.
of us on stage bodybuilding? And I think like it's hard because sometimes you go to shows and there's like nobody in women's bodybuilding and it sucks.
Yeah.
But I think that we can maybe popularize that a bit more over the next few years. Especially
Yeah.
like with BNBF giving that option. That's why they do it, because they just want more girls to enjoy it. So yeah, I think that's really cool. Sorry, that was a bit of an off-topic question.
No, no, I was gonna say though, like even just since 2020 when we both competed, like the transition of people that have gone from bikini to figure is huge. Like figure now is so much more popular than kind of it was even 3 years ago. So if you imagine in the next kind of 3 years, 6 years, 9 years, like I think a lot of those figure girls will then go physique, bodybuilding, and people do kind of transition. And I think by this point in 10 years, I do think that qualifiers at all four categories will be like stacked,
Yeah,
which is just
100%.
nice.
Yeah, it is nice because I think previously so many girls have like limited themselves to not doing something either because they're scared of what it will look like, or they're worried about like,
Yeah.
oh, not big enough, or they can't do it, or even just the expectation of it as well. And it's like that's another expectation that can sometimes come with moving up categories. And it's kind of why I'm glad
Yeah.
that the NBF offer that option, because like I'd initially said, I might do bodybuilding, but the reality is that I'll probably be, I honestly don't know. It could be figure, physique, bodybuilding. It massively
Yeah.
depends. And, I think that it's nice to open up your options rather than like setting yourself on being like, I'm this category forever and this is what I'm doing. And then everyone expecting you to do that, because like bodybuilding and your journey with that is so much more like wider than that. It's not just limited to like this one thing, which I think is important. But coming away from that though, I think one thing that like coming back to these expectations, coming back to stage, probably the biggest thing that impacts most athletes is the change in the external noise that you experience through off season, through prep. Did you notice that this changed in terms of just generally like the amount of noise? And when I say that, I mean, like people following you, people having opinions on your physique, people just watching what you're doing. Did that change a lot from the last prep to this prep, especially when you've noticed like getting on stage in the show day towards like how they've been, either for better or for worse?
Yeah, so I definitely have, like you said, there's definitely more noise. I think even anybody that stepped on stage, once somebody knows what you look like on stage and you're not a first timer anymore, you're always gonna have kind of more people following you or more people kind of just not expecting stuff from you, but people do like they wonder as well, wonder what you're gonna look like, wonder how successful you're gonna be and things like that. For me, I don't think it negatively impacted me because a lot of the people that follow me are genuine, like natural bodybuilders that want to kind of support and they do appreciate kind of the journey that I've been on and, taking a lot of time off. And I think it is important not to kind of listen to all of the compliments as well. Like it comes with both. I've never really experienced negativity on my Instagram, which is nice, but equally kind of I don't really kind of take compliments from a lot of people, just for the fact that I know people want to kind of support, but limiting the noise that I listen to was quite an important part for me. And I think you'll kind of appreciate the same thing. Like there's like, the people that kind of are like closest to me, they're the people that I listen to. And whilst I support kind of I appreciate everyone's like messages and things like that, it's just kind of limiting how much noise you actually take in. And I do think kind of it's been quite nice this prep, just having people's support, but also kind of having those closer friends to kind of really tell me, you've improved or things like that. And around show days, honestly, I just felt so lucky to have people. Everyone's messages was more just kind of like, you've put everything into this and whatever happens, like we're proud of you. And that to me means so much more than someone saying like, you look amazing, it's just having people to just say like, I've seen what you've done the last 3 years and you couldn't have done any more. So yeah, I mean, more noise, but for me it wasn't a bad thing. But I do think kind of if you let it get to you and let it kind of be pressurized, like a pressure, then I do think it would be kind of a downward spiral. What about
Yeah.
you? What do you think?
I saw you do a really good job with that, and I'm trying to find my own balance with this a little bit, and I'm
Yeah.
kind of seeing what you've done, and I'm not copying you, but I've seen how well you've managed it, and I think I'd love to be able to manage it just like that, because you still share so much of your process on Instagram, which I think is
Yeah.
really important. It's so nice and it's so amazing for people to follow along that, and also just nice for your own documentation of it as well. Because you've worked damn hard for it. It's like, don't, if you want to share it, like share it. But at the same time, you keep the opinions that matter, like you keep them close, and you just really don't
Mhm.
worry about anything else. And you always have that forefront of like, it doesn't matter if someone says I look amazing, or you're going to smash it. Like, you care way more about the progress, the work you've done, and
Yeah.
that's it. And I think you always have to fixate on that. Like, even at the Northern, I remember you came to the check-in, you weren't worried about like standing around talking to everyone else. You just like sat with me for like half an hour while they went through the queue.
Yeah.
We just chilled and didn't like worry too much
Yeah.
about anything else. And I could tell that you were just focused on like you and like your process and what you needed to do. And I think I really want to find a better balance with like my social media and how I manage it
Yeah.
when I prep, because
Definitely.
I want to share more. And I think that even recently, I've like with the past diet phase, I've kind of tried to share more of like my physique and my process. And I've been scared of doing that because I don't want people to just like, it's hard because you know that you don't listen to it, but I don't want loads of
Yeah.
comments on my posts of like people saying like, oh, you're going to do really well, you're going to do this. And I'm not saying this in a way that sounds egotistical, but like I've had people say that, and I know that they're wrong because they can't
Yeah.
they can't predict that. Like, sure, I'm going to be improved, but
Nobody knows.
I could win or I could come last. Like, you don't know.
Just
And
don't know.
I saw the reason why I'm kind of like so careful with this is because I saw what happened with AJ in 2020. So you'll see a
Yeah.
huge difference. Like, he went from one extreme to the other, where basically in 2020 he shared like daily updates, like everything. And bear in mind, he obviously
Yeah.
has a really big following, and a lot of eyes on him.
Yeah.
So very, very different to like where I'm at. But he was like, every day he had like messages of people being like, oh, you look amazing, you look this and that. And honestly, yeah, he looks all right, but he wasn't at his best. Like, he
Yeah.
wasn't. And he was so clouded by what everyone else was saying. And because he's self-coached as well, I'm sure that impacted the process. And I suppose that's kind of why I'm careful with it, because I do have a huge input on my own coaching process. And he just didn't like, he didn't
Yeah.
push himself to get lean enough, and he didn't do this because everyone told him he looked great. And he was like, oh, I look great. And then
Yeah.
what happened? He didn't win. That's not the huge issue, but he didn't bring his best because he was so
Yeah.
distracted by what others were saying. And I think that
Yeah.
then he went into 2021 and he kind of like really didn't share too much. I suppose it is different when you are self-coaching or whatever it may be. But I'm trying to find a balance of that now. And I think
Yeah.
what I want to do is when I prep next time, I do want to share it, because I think that people want to see what I've been through, and that's kind of a huge part of what I do, is like sharing that. And just like you have, is like showing that with others, and also not being afraid to like just kind of be proud of what you've done. Like, you've been in an off season for like what, 3-4 years. It's like, you've not been lean for such a long time. Don't be afraid to like enjoy it and show it and showcase it.
Yeah.
And it's just like compartmentalizing the messages and the comments that you really take in, and the ones that you read, you see, but they don't actually impact the way that you think.
Yeah. No, definitely. The thing is I actually had this chat with Ethan before my prep because we
Mm.
always speak about it. Obviously, we both like love social media and I love posting. And those of you that know Ethan, he didn't post anything about his whole prep until the day of his show, pretty much. And I always kind of through my off season, it is something like you now are thinking about. I thought about it and I thought like, do I want to do like a silent prep and not kind of post anything and
Yeah.
turn up on stage and there we go, my first post is a stage picture, or do I want to share everything, or what do I want to do? And I did think about it a lot. I probably spent a year of my off season thinking about it, and then as a prep kind of got closer, I thought like what for me kind of means the most is throughout my off season, I would go back and look at my 2020 prep, and I'd say like, oh, at this point I was doing this. And I love, even now I look back at my 2020 Instagram posts and I'm like, wow, like that's what I was doing. So I knew I didn't want to do kind of like a secret prep, but I equally, like you said, I didn't want to share everything because it's just too much for me and I didn't want that. So I mean, I didn't even say kind of how many weeks out I was or what shows I was doing until I think I was like 10 weeks out.
Mm.
Bearing in mind, like it's been a long prep. I was already kind of 15, 20 weeks into prep when I shared that. But I'd still post like physique updates and I'd still post like how I was feeling and still post like training. And for me, that wasn't kind of hiding the shows I was doing. It was just kind of like just not having the pressure of people knowing how far away I was, because I didn't want people thinking, I think as a 3DMJ prep, you are leaner earlier. And I didn't want people to be like kind of, oh, like you're too lean for too long, because that wasn't going to give me anything apart from mess with my head. So if I had posted kind of, oh, I'm 16 weeks out and showed the photos, people think I'm 3, 4 weeks out, So that wouldn't have been kind of productive. So until I was kind of sub 10 weeks out, I didn't think that was necessary to share for my own benefit. But then after that, kind of, just sharing updates. And like you said, like when you are lean, like you do want to post because you spend so long just, just being fat. Like even just having like, like I've never had vascularity before. So the first time I got like a vein running down my arm, I was like, I need to document this. Like,
Yeah.
this is cool. Or like the first like striation that came in my quad, I was like, okay, like this is cool. And it was just so exciting to see. And even just kind of, I started practicing bodybuilding poses like quite far out, and just seeing my physique in those like striations in my delts, like I'd never had that before. So like I want to share that, and it's like you said, like it's just finding your own kind of your own balance of sharing enough but not kind of giving all the details for
Mm.
your own sake. It's not that I'm not secretive. If someone asked me, I would tell them. If someone messaged me and said, what are you doing, I would say, this is what I'm doing. But just not giving it to all of everyone, because it's just not needed. So yeah, I do think kind of finding your own, you don't have to be secretive to like not have that kind of external noise.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just the balance that works well for you. But I think no matter what you do, you have to be able to just separate the opinions, the voices that matter, and the ones that
Yeah.
don't matter, or the ones that you just don't need to hear. Like, for example, people
Yeah.
will even get like other coaches or like posing coaches or people like message them about their posts. Like, for example, like it's like if you would say you were to put a post on at like 10 weeks out or 11 weeks out, and someone would like message you. I've seen it all the time when like posing coaches do it as well. And then they'll say, you're too lean for this point, or you're too this and that. It's like, do you really need to hear that? Like, do you actually know? So
Yeah.
it's like, be protective of the things that I think for you are going to keep you in a better spot. Like whatever is going to work best for you, that's what you kind of have to do on that front, like whether it's your job or not. Because I think a lot of people think, oh, I have to post on social media because it's my job. And like, it's like, is it really though? Like, is it actually, do you need to share that with everyone, or could you just hold back from it if that's not good for you? Or like,
Yeah.
even if it's not your job and you want to share more. Like, I think that there's no right or wrong answer, but I do think it's just like we've said, something you have to be aware of, because I think so many people get into it. And it's so easy to think that everything on here is like real life and it isn't.
Yeah. And
So
it's
I think as
not.
long as you can like
Yeah.
ground yourself from it, that's really the most important thing at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, just kind of like you said, like social media can be such a good thing, but it could be such a bad thing as well. And like you said, and even if it is, your job or you're an online coach, you still don't need to share everything if you don't want to. Like, just going back to Ethan, like his social media this last year has grown so much, but he doesn't post physique updates because for him that's not productive. He doesn't feel like that's necessary, and it doesn't hinder your job or your social media growth or whatever.
Mm.
And just kind of like you said, like just post what you want to post. Like people really don't care, like they actually don't. And you posting a physique shot every day to get people's comments and opinions to make yourself feel better. Like that's not productive either. So yeah, I think just kind of definitely taking a step back from that is if you need to is always a benefit.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not I'm not laughing. I'm just thinking about Ethan bodybuilding 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9.
That was a nightmare. You know he can't change it back until the 18th because he got that. Yeah, so he got the verified thing so that they'd stop hacking him. But
Yeah.
because he's got that, you have to wait like a month before you can change your name.
Why
So yeah.
not change that back? Like me and AJ were watching his post the other day. I was like, is he still called that?
Yeah, 2 days left and he can change it. I said he should keep it. I like it.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's such a catchy name. Like it just catches
I
like
know.
straight off the
It's
tongue.
the numbers at the end.
Yeah.
11222.
God's sake.
Oh, bless it.
So many people probably have no idea what we're talking about right now. Obviously, I think we covered the like external noise side of things there really well. But the last thing that I kind of really want to just touch upon is obviously the internal noise that you give to yourself. And I know that you've touched upon having, a little bit of self-doubt at points. How have you noticed that that's actually changed more across the season? Because it can like, I know it's always, sometimes it's not linear up, linear down. It can be up, down, up, middle, all over the place. Has it changed a lot for you from being off season to before your first show to second show to like where you're at now? Like, have you seen that transition at all across this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is like when I stepped off on stage in 2020, I said like when I return, I just want to be better. Like that's all I can ask of myself. It doesn't matter how much better, it doesn't matter kind of all I want is to step on stage and be better, be a better athlete, have a like, more muscle or a better physique or even more condition, just in general, just be a better person. And I think that's probably what got me through my off season was like each day I would just do something to make me better. And I think that kind of then mentally made me know kind of whatever happens, like I've given every single day everything. And whilst you kind of have self doubt in respect to kind of, like self doubt of I don't know how I'm going to do, I know that I kind of did everything that I could to be better. And I think it's strange because you'll probably have this at the moment where you can't really compare photos at any point until you're stage lean pretty much. Like when you start dieting, yeah, you can kind of compare photos to the start of your last diet, or when you finish dieting, you can compare them, but you never truly know until you're stage lean. And I think throughout my off season, it was definitely ups and downs because I would compare photos, but the thing is they wouldn't be at the same stages, or they would be at different lighting, or I'd be I'd eaten different meals, drank different amount of water. Like there's so many variables that like some days I'd compare photos and be like, yes, like you know what, like I've grown, like I'm gonna look better. And then other days I'd take a photo and be like, what have I done for the last 3 years? And like it does mess with your head. So I think
Mm.
throughout my off season, I would obviously do that just because, out of interest. But throughout prep, for me, that was so negative. And there was, I think, one or two occasions where I'd put like a photo next to the same body weight on my previous prep. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, I don't look any different. And then I would feel rubbish and then, and make my day worse. And so I stopped doing that. I did it twice, I think. And then I was like, it's actually not productive at all. And even now, like this morning, I put photos from 1 week out of qualifiers to 1 week out now. And I was like, oh, I look smaller. But again, like I said to you, like there's just so many things. Like I haven't dropped off fatigue yet. Like I am chasing conditions, so I'm gonna look flatter. And there's just so many, things. So I think self-doubt from kind of like a, expectation point, that's always kind of background for me anyway. But knowing that, I've done everything that I could, that just kind of made everything like better almost. So it's a hard one. It's definitely ups and downs. So you have some days where you think, like yes, like I've made progress, and you have other days where you're like, oh, I don't even see any different.
Yeah, I think that's where, like, just as you mentioned, the comparisons have to be, you've got to be so careful with them
Yeah.
because I especially think that once, as a natural athlete, once you get to a certain level of development, it's going to be really hard for you to see progress, even in like, yes, we said off season, but like you said, when you're comparing stage lean to stage lean, the difference can be as much as when you see someone in person, their overall look just carries more muscle, like more maturity, like more density, that when you look at a picture, you just can't see it. Like it's just not quite there. Or even like, especially to your own eye, when you've seen your physique so often, it's so hard for you to tell that there is that difference. Like I know you have shared some of your like prep comparisons on your close friend story that I've seen, and I can see you being like, do I look different? But it's like, I look at that and I'm like, I can tell that that is a bigger, more mature, more developed Zena. But like when you just look at a little snapshot and it's with you looking at it, it's so hard. Like the amount of times that I've looked at pictures, I've sent them to AJ and I'm like, I don't look any different. Like what have I done for the past 3 years? And he'll know was when I look at you in person, I know you're different. You can't always see it from picture to picture. And it's why when people talk about shows and people sometimes talk about placing when they've not been to the show, they'll be like, she doesn't really look that good. And I've done that. Like I've looked at
me too.
pictures and I've said to someone who was at the show, took the shot, I'm like she doesn't look like she's got that much muscle, or her shape doesn't look great. And then they'll say, no, trust me, in person, they're really good. And at the end of the day, like that's actually what matters. I think we sometimes, because we're taking physique shots and because we're looking at stage pictures, we're like, my check-in pictures this morning. And it's like, but how do you look? Like, how do you actually look? Like after you've trained, when you've got a pump, when you're in the gym, or if you're posing and you're looking at yourself in the mirror, or somebody that you trust is looking at you, how do you actually look? And what is their like honest opinion? Because that's the only, like, honestly, that's the only damn thing that matters. That is the only thing that matters, you know? And I think that you have to just pay attention to, it's like your opinion, your coach's opinion, anyone close to you. Like, so in your case, it's like Ethan. It's probably the only person who really like looks at you and gives your opinion. That's it. That's it.
Exactly.
It's the only thing to like that I honestly think like matters at that point.
Yeah, no, like it's definitely, and like what you said about the shows, like it's crazy because even like Darren, you know, DSL Darren, he said to Ethan, he was like, she looks so different in real life to the ones like on photos, and like in a good way. And it's like you said, like I've been to shows and I've seen people in person. I'm like, wow, like you look phenomenal. But then you look different in stage photos even to like the real life, so it is kind of like at the end of the day, like you're making all of these comparisons, but like you said, like what do they mean at the end? And even just kind of like looking at other people's stage photos, if you know, you're like, oh, you know, they look really good, the lighting is going to be different to your stage photos, and unless you're stood next to that person on stage, you just don't, you can't compare. And me and Ethan always say this, how like someone can look incredible on like a photo they posted on Instagram, but until you put that person under the same stage lights on the stage next to someone else, you never really know how they compare. And people obviously, you know, when you're stood on your own, often look better than kind of if you're stood in like a 10-person stacked lineup. So yeah, like you said, it's one of those things where I think I've definitely learned this season not to just over evaluate and kind of just take it with a pinch of salt, send the photos to the people that need to see them, get the feedback, and then work from there. So yeah, it's definitely like a good point, I think, of you know, especially when people that are like prepping are comparing themselves, it's like it's not, you're not comparable until you get on stage. I've definitely fallen that trap this prep, like you know, because I've spoken to you about it before, and it's like you compare yourself, but what are you comparing yourself to? Like you just don't know, and it's just pointless.
No, it is pointless. And I think that's probably like the main takeaway from it really is, it's like you just focus on you. And I know it sounds so simple like to say it. It's like easier said than done, but like reminding yourself, like having conversations like these or listening to podcasts like this when you're having those moments, like that's all you need to do is bring yourself back. So yeah, thank you so much for obviously coming on and just talking through that. And I think that for a lot of people who are in a similar spot to you right now, or they're like planning on returning to stage and they want to know what that mindset is like, I think it will be really helpful to hear somebody who's like really gone through that and felt that too. So thank you very much for coming on today. Obviously you've got the finals ahead there, your final 2 shows, right? Are you just doing the UKDFBA and BNBF?
Yeah. 1 week out from BNBF and then 3 from UKDFBA.
Amazing. I'm good. I'm not going to be at the BNBF, but I will be at the UKDFBA. So I'll be very excited for that. And I know you'll carry this mindset into those latter stages of prep too. So yeah, thank you for coming on, Z. Everyone make sure to give Zena a follow. I'll pop all of the details below, but I'm sure everyone's already caught up with you as always. But yeah, if you've listened today, thank you so much for listening. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. If you can do, if you enjoyed it, that'd be amazing. And I'll be back with another episode next week.